Hello everyone, welcome to another Random Talk Sunday, and today I'm going to be briefly addressing the question of, are holidays coming too early? And I think this can be tied into sort of a yes or no category. At least I think partially it is true, and on other parts I think sometimes maybe at certain points are maybe a little bit over exaggerated. I mean, depending on a lot of the times, I think, from personal experience. So let me go through the reasons why. And I think the reason why the holidays in particular have tried to span out for a longer time is the influence that they have on us culturally. I think primarily since these holidays are so ingrained within, in particular, Western societies, it only makes sense that we would have these kinds of things sort of be a part of our whole kind of, I guess you could say, identity, so to speak, and that they would be present even if they don't come out around exactly of the time of when the holiday is taking place. And I think that makes sense. And as far as to whether or not it is maybe a little bit too overemphasized, I think that can be argued. And I think partially there is a reason as to why it kind of has gotten to this sort of point. So again, I think this can have both negative as well as positive connotations to it. Especially since we're dealing with a lot of different things, in particular ones that might be difficult, especially considering within the United States, since we have such a variety of mixed pots as far as different ethnicities and cultures is concerned. So I think that's really a reason, though, because we have taken a lot of inspiration through, in particular, the European culture and have made it sort of a part of ours, and in doing so we have this kind of cultural history surrounding it, and hence there is maybe an overemphasis of it as opposed to maybe in other areas of the world. Now, there is also the consumerism angle. Some people argue there's way too much consumerism out there, and yes, I agree, there's a lot of consumerism out there. In particular around this time of year. But on the other hand, consumerism still has its kind of purpose. In other words, the more people are buying things, the greater impact it has on the economy. And this, in the same way as, when you produce things and you ultimately sell more, you get better economic growth. And so I think, both sides of the argument of consumerism, I think, can definitely be made. Is there too much of an emphasis on trying to buy the latest thing or the coolest whatever out there? Yeah, I think that's definitely I think there's definitely, that can be an argument said that, we're relying too much on the things as opposed to the actual meanings of the holidays, and that sometimes can result in the holidays coming a lot earlier and companies trying to bring out more and more products and things like that. So I think, again, that it can have, I think, negative as well as positive connotations to it. So I don't think consumerism is in and of itself bad. I think, so an overconsumption can be a problem, but at the same time, it still has its purpose. For everything that you make, it has to be sold somehow. Otherwise, there is no money to be made from it. So I think that's very important to note, and really to understanding basic economics. So another thing that is, I think, important to note is, obviously, I think we sort of allow sometimes the holidays to come earlier. And I think largely has to do with the fact that sometimes people don't take off their lights. They kind of keep the lights up the whole end of the year. I don't really know why that is, or why they choose to, but some people leave their lights on for the entire of the year, as opposed to just putting them up on Christmas or at least around Christmas time. So again, I think we've sort of allowed, I think, culturally to expand upon the holidays and make them sort of a part of a yearly thing as opposed to just around a certain time of year. And again, I think this can have both positive and negative aspects to it, because on the one hand, it's positive to carry on that kind of spirit that is reflected in the cultural values of the holidays, but at the same time, again, putting up lights and constantly playing Christmas music and whatnot, I think it doesn't allow us to really appreciate the holidays all too much, and I think it creates a little bit too much of an overexposure at times. But I think carrying that kind of same positive energy is a good thing to have, at least throughout the years. So again, it's kind of, there's positive as well as negative things that can come from that. And unfortunately, around this time of year, it's hilarious because out of all of the holidays to come early, in particular Halloween and Christmas, some people, largely, at least for the majority of the time, seem to ignore Thanksgiving. I don't understand this because it is such a important holiday, because you get 2 days off. At least for me, I get 2 days off, Thursday and Friday of the year, to celebrate the holiday. So for some reason, people don't really seem to, I think, at least advertise it all too much. I don't know if it's just the fact that, it's just designed to just be a meal. It's not like Christmas where you're getting presents, or Halloween where you're dressing up as something. So it's maybe not the most elaborative of holidays. But at the same time, I still think that there can be a lot explored through Thanksgiving. And I think some people will argue about, the whole history behind Thanksgiving and how certain aspects may not be as pleasant to hear as others. But at the same time, I still think the whole meaning, at least behind largely Thanksgiving, I think should be something that is sort of a part of at least the, in particular, North American culture, considering the fact that, it was supposed to reflect on a time where there was this kind of exchanging of cultures and sort of people being thankful. So I don't know exactly why that one gets kind of put under the bus. I mean, you'd think people would make more money if they just promoted Thanksgiving more too, because you don't need to just promote Halloween and Christmas, because if you're only limiting to those holidays, I mean, what about the money that can be earned for Thanksgiving? So again, there's also that part of it as well. But I think overall, as far as the question is concerned, I think there is some good and some negative elements that could come from this whole concept of the holidays coming a little earlier than usual. I think, again, it can be an annoyance to some, and for others, they don't personally care too much. I personally don't really care too much, but at the same time, I think, like, just constantly having it there when it's really not the time yet, I guess it's just a little bit, at least difficult, or at least even tricky to kind of really exactly date to, because these holidays are so jumbled up together. And there's only so much time that you can use to get whatever you can get. So I don't know. I think on the one hand, they do come too early. And on the other hand, I think there can be both positive and negative things that can be associated with it coming a little too early. And again, there's a lot of over exaggeration. I'll admit that too. That there's always these really, people go out really big sometimes around this time of year, and I'm more of a simpleton in that I just like to keep things simple. But I think that's though really ultimately all I can say. Be more than happy to hear what anybody else has to say if they've felt that the holidays are a little bit too over exaggerated and are probably too much emphasized earlier and earlier throughout every year, or if you feel that it doesn't really necessarily matter, or if you've been overly exposed too much. I'd say I've gotten a little exposure, but I don't think it's at least as over exaggerated. Maybe it's different in some areas, at least within the United States, because again, all of the states kind of have their own thing, or at least do different, um, or at least try to kind of commemorate the holidays in sort of different ways, probably, because I'm sure it's different in uh, other states. But I'd be more than happy to hear what anybody else has to say. However, that's, I think, ultimately all I can say for this video. If there are any questions, comments, concerns, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye.